Football Show, sponsored by Mortgage Right. I'm your host, John Sarianides, and as always, I'm joined by my partners, Kevin Stone and Adam Kirkchin. Gentlemen, how are you on this post-draft Monday?
Just
Doing
recovering.
good. Just watching the smoke the heat.
Well, let me tell you something. Recovering is the key word here. I mean, I don't know if I've ever written as much as I did last week. So, needless to say, I'm looking forward to not necessarily a break because I love football and I can talk about it 24/7. But I am looking forward to at least not having the rush, right? Like that, just trying to get a bunch of stuff done ahead of spring practices or the draft. So that's been nice. We do want to remind you that we are brought to you by Mortgage Right. If you're in the market to purchase your first home or sell your current home, give our good friend Herb Devine a call, 781-254-2846. You can also email him at herb@mortgageright.com. With 27 years of experience, Herb is one of the top lenders and loan officers in Massachusetts and New England. He is licensed in multiple states, and he can help you purchase your first or next home. Can't do it, though, unless you get in touch with him. Again, that number is 781-254-2846, or you can send him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. He and his team are available anytime, including nights and weekends. All right, gents, before we get into the draft, and we've got plenty to talk about there, Christian Barmore steals the show today. Big news of the day. Patriots signed their budding star defensive tackle to a 4-year, $90 million extension. It includes $41.8 million in guaranteed money. Nicole Lynn, who is a rising star and has been for a while in the agent world, she negotiated the deal for Barmore, and I've gotten to know Nicole a little bit through the years. She's tremendous. She has done so well for her clients, for her rookie clients. She's awesome. So hat tip to Nicole for negotiating this deal. But just some thoughts on Christian Barmore getting this extension. I think we kind of all knew it was coming. It had been speculated for a while. It's nice to see that they got it done. Go ahead, Stone.
Yeah, the biggest non-Tom Brady contract in franchise history speaks volumes of just how different things are right now. So a huge deal. Had to get it done, both on the field and off the field. He's a guy that deserved it, and I keep saying this seemingly with every single person they sign now. But it's huge for the locker room just to know that if you go about things the right way and produce, you're going to get rewarded, which wasn't always the case under Bill Belichick. So just a big signing all around, both on and off the field, in my opinion.
I'm glad they locked him up because I think he's maybe their best player. He's close to it. He's the top 3 player in the team, if not number 1. So, and I think it's I don't usually think it's easy to find good interior defensive linemen too. Like there's not always a ton to go around. He can hold up at the point of attack and he can get into the backfield. He's just a really good player. So it was good to see. I think, anytime you lock up a guy that is that good, I think it sort of energizes the rest of the team too because they're happy to have a good player back. So I think it's great that he's back, and I think he'll continue to have a great career with the Patriots.
Yeah, I think it's a great move. I think it was one that needed to get done. I don't think you wanted to get into franchise tagging him or him getting the free agency because I think if there's any kind of competition, it would have cost him more and they could have potentially lost him. I think they get him at a fair deal for him and a fair deal for the organization. Look, you look at his season in 2023, he had 8.5 sacks, 64 total tackles. He had a tremendous year. Kind of got lost in the fact that they went 4-13, and all we talked about week in and week out was how bad the offense was. But the defense was pretty good all year. They had a couple of bad games. The New Orleans game comes to mind, but he was terrific from start to finish. You can make the argument, especially after Gonzalez and Judon got hurt. He was their best defensive player. He's a budding star. I think it's smart to get this done when they did. And I think now you can move on, and you've got the majority of your core locked up for at least the next 3 years on that side of the ball. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Judon after next year. But most of those guys are locked up for at least the next 3 years. I think that's huge for a team that is going to be leaning on their defense until their offense catches up. Until Drake May is ready, until some of these young skill guys that they drafted this weekend are ready, this team's going to be leaning on their defense next year in 2025 like they did last year. Their defense is going to have to come through. They've got a really good group, good core group there that they can build off of. This has a potential to be a top 10 defense. But this is a terrific signing, and I like the fact that they took a page out of Belichick's book here. Belichick routinely attempted to sign core guys that they drafted and developed to long-term deals. And if he didn't sign you to a long-term deal, if you were a player that he wanted back, he would let you test the market and then give you a fair market deal. He did it with McCourty. He did it with Hightower, among others. He probably would have done the same thing with Barmore, a guy that he traded up for. He developed. He would have wanted him here. So it's nice to see them take that same approach that I think Belichick would have taken as well. Now, Belichick was not big into giving guys a third contract, but if you were a guy that he considered a core player, he would give you that second contract. Obviously, this is now going to be Barmore's second deal. It's good, like I said, to see that they got it done, and they lock up a key piece to the rebuild of this football team. Barmore is going to be a big part of what they do here moving forward the next handful of years. All right, let's shift gears here now and talk about the draft. We finally got through it 3 days after about what seemed like a year's worth of hype. It's over. It came and it went. So I want to kind of break this down into multiple parts here. Let's start with Thursday night, the Drake May pick. Obviously, Kevin, you and I talked about it a little bit on Thursday night. We haven't had a chance to talk about it since. Adam, we don't know what you think, nor do we care. No, I'm kidding. But we don't know what you think. But let's start there on Thursday night. Just some thoughts on the Drake May pick. And then as a follow-up, were you surprised that they didn't trade back into the first round? But let's start with May. Adam, let's start with you.
I think I'm not surprised they didn't trade back because there was some talk about it, but it didn't seem like, people also seem to say that, oh, this is just sort of a thing that said they'd have to do a lot more to do it. It would have taken a huge bunch of picks and players to make that move. I don't think anybody was going to do it. But as far as May is concerned, I'm glad they picked him there. I think that was the sort of the expected thing. And look, I'm not crazy about Drake May as a prospect. I think he does show some inconsistency. But like if you're looking at his film, how many times do you see him make a throw and go, wow? And I think it's pretty often. Like he does it at least once a game where he'll make some crazy throw downfield that is right on the money. And if you can sort of, keep that and add a little bit more consistency in the short and intermediate game, you got a hell of a quarterback. It's just a wonder of, is he going to be ready right away? Is he somebody that's going to need to sit a year? I mean, those are questions for another time, I guess. But to me, it just seems like you're banking on his ceiling being as high as it can be. And you're saying maybe in 2 years or 3 years, this guy is going to be a total stud. I think that is there. Now, it could be there that he, never sort of gains that consistent accuracy that you sort of miss at times with him. But I think he's a good quarterback. And I totally, from where the Patriots were, I was all in on them taking any quarterback at 3. And May was, right there. Well, I guess we'll see what Penix looks like, what McCarthy looks like, and maybe compare and contrast. But as far as that first night, I think taking Drake May was a smart move. Now, again, I'm not as high on him as some of the other guys, but I think he's a good quarterback, and he has the potential to be great if he cleans everything up. And I think that he can with the right coaching.
So I was rooting for the trade just for kind of the enjoyment, the chaos of the night, but it felt like that's what they were doing for at least a couple weeks now. So I kind of talked myself into it. Now, having kind of seen how he interacts with his family and with people in the media on Friday, I'm a fan of his, and I think he looks the part and sounds the part. So I think it was a good move. And in terms of trading back up, they clearly tried. We saw other reports they wanted either Leggett or the kid from Florida State, Coleman, but not necessarily surprised that they couldn't. The biggest surprise to me was Buffalo
Well, the
and
guy they
Kansas City.
wanted was Guyton. Guyton was the guy that they
And can't
wanted.
hit, yeah, yeah,
They just couldn't get back into the upper 20s rather to get him, and that ultimately was
right.
what did them in. Leggett was, I think, the other guy they wanted, but again, they couldn't get Buffalo to agree to a deal with them.
Right, which wasn't surprising in the division, but I thought it was a good night overall that first night. And look, they couldn't screw it up, right? Like you have to get this pick right
No, you
if
could
you're
have screwed it
yeah.
up. You
Well,
100% could have screwed it up. You
my
could have
point is
traded down. You could have taken McCarthy there. Possibly Daniels
correct.
could be considered a
My
screw up.
point
They
is
could have screwed it up.
my point is they can't afford to, is what I'm saying.
Right.
So I think it was the right move. And again, I've been thoroughly impressed with all of the interactions that May has had so far, whether it was last Friday or even that first night. He just seems like, and I wrote this the other day, and I want to make sure this sounds and comes out correctly. This is not a knock on Mac Jones or his parents or the way they brought him up, but to me at least, and you guys can tell me if I'm off here, it feels like May's circle and just his upbringing might have him more prepared to mentally handle what it takes to be a quarterback of the Patriots compared to Mac Jones. Now, again, that's not a knock on his parents, Mac Jones's parents, or the way he was brought up. He was not a bad guy. He was very easy for us to deal with. But just getting a sense of May over these first 2 days, again, to me, it just feels like he has the right people around him, maybe more so than Mac did to take on this role.
Yeah, I love the pick. He was the number one quarterback on my board. I think he has the most upside of any quarterback in this class. I think from what I heard this weekend, they were pretty locked in on him after his pro day.
Yeah,
I also heard that. What's that?
Wolf said that on Thursday. He said they
Yeah.
knew for 2 weeks.
Yeah, but I heard over the weekend that it was more than 2 weeks, that they were kind of set on him about a month ago, that he was going to be their guy. They did entertain offers. I don't think they were as high on Daniels. I'm not convinced that if this was flipped and Washington takes May, I'm not sure they take Daniels at 3. They've been saying publicly that they kind of view these guys the same, but I think they like McCarthy better, and I think they would have considered a trade down at that point. Jane Daniels is funny because I think there were people in the league who love him and had him as their number one quarterback. And there are people in the league, like all of these guys, right? There's some people in the league that love him, some people that don't like him as much. But I heard one of the turnoffs with Daniels was just his overall attitude. He wasn't like beloved by teammates in college. And then the stuff he started saying about not wanting to play for the Commanders privately, I think, even though that didn't persuade them, they still took him. I think Daniels is just about at his ceiling. He has a little bit more. I've said that before. I think Williams is at his ceiling. I think May's got the highest ceiling of the 3. Now, those guys will be able to play right away, though. That's the difference. I don't think May should play right away. We've talked about this ad nauseum, so we don't necessarily need to talk about it again. But if they do it right, and Adam, you pointed this out, if they do it right and they develop him the right way, and he fixes some of the issues that he has, some of the timing stuff in the pocket, fading to either side when he throws against pressure. He's a little frantic in the pocket. If some of that stuff is cleaned up, yeah, I mean, from an arm talent standpoint, you have a guy that's as good as any quarterback in this draft. From a size measurable standpoint, as good as any guy in this draft. And, Kevin brings up a good point, and I know that sometimes this doesn't get talked about enough. Family does matter at certain positions. And I know this is going to sound controversial when I put that out there, but teams have now at least come around to the idea of at least publicly acknowledging that at certain positions they want a strong support system for the player. They want a player that comes from a home where he had success and it was encouraged and fostered. And you bring up a good point about Mac. It has nothing to do with his upbringing, but I'm not sure Mac was thick-skinned enough to play in this market. I mean, let's be honest. When you go back and think about the last 3 years covering Mac Jones, when Mac Jones was around his teammates, he could be goofy, he could be loose. When he met with us, he was professional and cordial. But as soon as the microphones were away and he was kind of in the locker room by himself, he was curmudgeon-y. He wouldn't interact with his teammates. He wouldn't interact with other people. He was kind of weird. This kid gives off a completely different vibe.
His mind really isn't anywhere else but football. If he's dating the same girl since 7th grade. So again, I just think there's a completely different element to his upbringing and his family life that wasn't there with Mac. And I do think it serves him well, especially when you're taking over as a quarterback of the Patriots.
Yeah, I feel like the stuff that I liked the least from Mac was when he was like motioning towards the offensive staff when they got in a play. Remember that like famous shot where he's going like this? Like that's horrible leadership. You can't have any quarterback doing that. And like, if May is better about like taking criticism and all that stuff, then that's good. And I think you said it best, John, about May's ceiling being we don't know just how good this guy can be, but like the glimpses that you saw on film, if those show up in the NFL, this guy can be really, really good. Like really good. Like I mean, some of the throws he makes are like he doesn't always make the throws that everybody else makes, like those short ones. Like he misses those a lot, but like he makes some throws that none of the other guys can make. Like that are at least tougher for everybody else. Like his downfield shots and like the stuff over the middle of the field. Like he's a good quarterback. Again, like you clean up his inconsistency and you keep those outstanding plays. You're gonna have a very, very good quarterback. And I think that's sort of what you're banking on when you pick a guy like me, number 3 overall.
There's one guy that he kind of reminds me of, and you guys can tell me if I'm completely off. And part of it is just the way he sounds and the way he looks. I'm not necessarily sure the game is the same. He reminds me of Jim Kelly. Like when I hear him talk and I look at him, I think about that 1983 documentary on ESPN. And for some reason, he's the same guy to me.
Oh no, I don't see that. He's physically. Jim Kelly was a good player in his time, and he was a pretty good quarterback physically during his time. But this kid's
it might just be the voice.
This kid physically is next level. I mean, maybe his persona. I don't know. I don't see it, but I don't know. I also didn't see that documentary, so. But nonetheless, I mean, look, they had no choice. They had to take a quarterback. I don't think that they seriously entertained trading down, which thank goodness they didn't. Because here's the thing. If Drake May's a bust and you tell me 4 years from now he's a bust, they're going to move on from him, I'd say, okay, sucks. But you know what? You got to roll the dice. The odds are that about 50% of the time you hit on a first-round quarterback. You had to roll the dice. You didn't have a choice. But if they had traded down, and I know, Adam, you mentioned this, people are going to compare him to McCarthy and Penix. That's fine. That's fine. You know who they're not going to compare him to? Williams and Daniels, because those guys went before him. The Patriots had no shot at taking those guys, so it doesn't matter. Compare him to McCarthy and Penix. I think he's going to be better than both of them. And I will say this real quick, and this is where I get pissed off with the media and some of the stupid shit that I hear, and it drives me nuts. And at the end of the show, I'm going to jump on my soapbox for a couple minutes because I get tired of some of the stupid things I hear this time of year. But what really gets me is I said this to you guys weeks ago, okay? There was a big drop between those top 6 guys and everyone else in this class. And lo and behold, the next quarterback that went after Bo Nix was in the 5th round. That's when Rattler went. So there was a big drop. There were people around here that were foolishly talking about him being the guy. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so it was ridiculous to me. And he could end up being New Orleans' starting quarterback. I'm not a Spencer Rattler guy. I like the physical tools. I don't like the height. I don't like how he handles pressure. I don't like the decision-making. But I think there's some pretty good physical tools to work there with. But my point is, once you get past those 6 guys, that's why I kept saying 6 guys are going to go in the first round. After that, it's a huge drop off. It's going to be a while before you see another one go. It played out that way.
The other thing too, if the Patriots had traded down, they ultimately would have been screwed with the way everything worked out. Unless it was with
Well, they
the
would have got
Giants at
McCarthy.
6.
I mean, he felt right. Yeah, but
But
the Giants didn't. But the Giants passed on McCarthy.
but they also they would have been playing with fire. So it is a good thing that they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking. I feel like McCarthy falls into a really good situation. Like he might not be the best quarterback of that first round, but as far as situation, he's in a really good one.
It's an elite skill group. You got Hawkinson, Jefferson, Addison, Aaron Jones now trader, but it's a pretty good skill group.
Yeah, so I mean, he might end up looking like the best one early on, just because of that.
And you got two bookend tackles. I mean, Christian Darrisaw is one of the most underrated players in the game.
I know. So, so much of this is situation and where you fall and all that stuff. So I think
Caleb Williams is going to an elite situation. If he's half the quarterback we think he could be, they're a playoff team next year.
I know. And that's the exciting thing of this draft is that like sometimes you draft one guy and it changes everything.
It does. Bears have never had that guy really. So if he doesn't end up becoming this guy or that guy, I should say, I don't know if they'll ever get that guy.
Well, would Jim McMahon count as that guy because they won a Super Bowl?
No, he would not. He was a nice quarterback, had some good physical tools, but they won that Super Bowl in 85 on the strength of their running game and arguably the greatest defense of all time. Jim made plays when he needed to in the passing game, so he was a nice complement to that running game and that defense. But this guy, Caleb Williams, is obviously a far more physically talented quarterback. The thing with Williams is going to be the turnovers and the mental makeup, man. I'm not sure he's the strongest cat out there mentally. I have my questions about him. I don't love Caleb Williams like other people do. And I will say that even if he ends up a top 5 quarterback, I don't love his game. I'm a big structure guy. I want my quarterback to play within the structure of the offense. I'm not a guy that wants street ballers. Even Mahomes, as great as Mahomes is, give me Brady over Mahomes any day of the week. I want a quarterback who plays within the system, not a guy who runs around and ad libs. And, those guys are always going to turn the ball over. You saw with Mahomes last year. I think you're going to see a lot of that with Caleb Williams. All right, real quick, let's go to day 2 here. Patriots take 2 players, of course. They made the same trade that we made in our final mock draft with the LA Chargers. They trade down 3 spots at pick 37. They take Jalen Polk. They come back at pick 68 and take Caden Wallace, offensive tackle out of Penn State. That was the pick that I think rattled some people's cages, but your thoughts on those 2 picks? Stone, let's start with you.
I liked them. It felt like they sort of got a tackle just because they had to at that point in the draft. There was a run on them. But ultimately, I just look at we talked about this before, either 1 or 2 shows before the draft, and it was what do you want to see him do? And it was mostly offense, right? You can't complain with sure, there's some questions about, who can play where and all that, but ultimately it was the draft that we all wanted to see. And did they get maybe everyone they wanted to? No, but they did what they had to do. So I have trouble complaining about anything they did this weekend.
It was funny. I kind of felt like, Belichick's not here anymore because usually that second day they go way off like a Division II lacrosse player. Like I was expecting one of those picks, but it was just like sort of conventional guys who a lot of people had mocked to the Patriots. Like I like Polk a lot. I think he kind of this might not fit, but like just in some ways, he kind of reminds me of the Coleman guy that went to the Bills. In terms of like the contested catch stuff, like that was like a big draw. And Wallace, like I'm glad they took an offensive tackle. Like I think people get caught up a little bit on the left-right stuff, and I know it is an adjustment if you're going to go from right to left. But I think physically, he could handle that move if they wanted to move him to left tackle. So I think they're both everybody said quarterback, wide receiver, tackle, and they went quarterback, wide receiver, tackle. So again, it's just like Bill's not here anymore because if he were here, he'd get a safety from Pomona. It's like so. I appreciated that part of it because it seemed like it was just a little bit more predictable, and that's not the worst thing in the world.
No, I think it's a great thing. I think it was refreshing to see them draft the way they did this weekend. And I'm not saying it because I'm an offensive guy or I wanted offensive personnel. It's the truth. I've said this now for weeks that if you really want to show this fan base that times have changed, the draft is going to go a long way in showing this fan base that times have changed. And I think they did that. I think that Elliott Wolf and this front office did that this weekend. They showed people that it's not business as usual anymore, that we're going to do the right thing and take Drake May at 3, that we're going to do the right thing and address wide receiver, that we're going to do the right thing and address the offensive line. Now, as far as Jalen Polk is concerned, I had it the other way around. I would have preferred a tackle in the second round, wide receiver in the third. Clearly, they had Polk higher on their board. He would have been gone by the time 68 came around anyway. They didn't want to lose out on him. Love the kid. Tough, gritty, makes plays in traffic, has strong hands. I think he has the best tracking skills of any receiver in this draft. I talked about that in my breakdown that I did after his pick. For me, I think you need that kind of guy if you're going to have a quarterback with a big arm that's going to push the ball down the field. You need a guy that can win in those contested catch situations, those window shots against cover 2, that can track the ball, that can high point it, go up and win one-on-one. He can do those things. Now, as far as Caden Wallace is concerned, love the pick. Love the pick because here's the thing, and this is why the Patriots have become Packers East, right? This draft was such a Ron Wolf, Mike Holmgren type draft. And it's such a Green Bay Packer draft even to this day in many ways because Caden Wallace, the Packers would take a guy like Caden Wallace because they can cross-train him. He can play both tackle spots. He can play guard. That's what they do so well. That's why they took Jordan Morgan in the first round because like Zach Tom, like Elgin Jenkins, he's going to play multiple positions up front for the Packers. Elliott Wolf wants similar type linemen in New England now. Caden Wallace can play left tackle, folks. Hate to burst your bubble. He's got the footwork and he's got the hands and he's got enough length because of his ability with that footwork because he's so good at vertical setting on kick sets and getting guys up the field and having that hand power to force him to redirect. He can play left tackle. I said that on Friday night. 20 minutes later, you guys meet with Elliott Wolf, Kevin, and guess what? He tells the whole world he thinks he can play left tackle. He can play left tackle. Now, where I disagree with you, Adam, is there is a big difference between right and left tackle. There is. However,
I said that.
I thought you said there wasn't much of a difference.
No, I think there is a difference, but it's not one that can't be overcome.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, needless to say, at the end of the day, either way you look at it, I think he can play left tackle. And I think for the Patriots, obviously they had both of these guys high on their board, and they took them both. And I think, look, if you're the Patriots at this point, the way you look at it is you need to develop a guy there that can play for you, whether it be this year or down the road. Obviously, they think they've got that guy in Caden Wallace. Day 3, real quick. Day 3 was a lot of fun. Saturday was a lot of fun. Surprising pick. They start off with Layden Robinson, the guard from Texas A&M. It's a little bit of a surprising pick to me because you took 3 guys that can basically play guard last year in the draft with Mafi, So, and Andrews. They go back there again. But I do think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is I think for them, the way they look at it is City So can play right tackle if you need him to. He can move around. So I think Robinson to me is more of a pure guard than anything else. But the pick that has Patriot fans all fired up about is Javon Baker. I know, Stone, you were fired up after you guys met with him, and I jumped on that call as well. I mean, he was great to talk to. He gives them something that I don't think they've had since Randy Moss was around here. Swagger at wide receiver. Your thoughts on the Javon Baker pick?
I need to get to this. I've been waiting all day. The amount of people that bitched about his wheelchair comment And I tweeted this out within minutes of it going viral. First of all, it was hilarious. Second of all, people need to lighten the F up. I've had a disabled parent for 30 years. I did not find that offensive in the least. I told my mother about it yesterday. She cracked up as soon as I told her what he said. So, A, people need to lighten the F up. But you're right. That swagger, it immediately jumped out to me. I mean, what receiver has talked like that around here? Hell, I don't even know if Randy talked like that when he was here. He probably had his moments, but nothing like that, man. This kid is full of confidence. And the fact that someone wrote a hit piece about him hours after he was drafted is
Who wrote the hit
ridiculous.
piece, by the way? Admittedly, I didn't see it.
Karen Garikin from the Herald. So I thought it was ridiculous. She's obviously been doing this a lot longer than I have and is very, very good at what she does. But wrong time, wrong place, in my opinion. But overall, I love the pick. Again, that swagger, you need that. There's two positions you need it more than anything, at least I think. It's corner and receiver. And they haven't had a kid like that in a long time. I think he's just as tough as Polk, if not tougher. And again, you need someone like that. But overall, man, give the kid a break. It's ridiculous how everybody needs to get mad about something these days. But I can't wait to watch him play. And training camp's going to be awfully fun now.
Well, I think he's an interesting player because in some ways he shares some traits as Polk a little bit. Again, this is another guy who competes for the ball as well as anybody. Like he just goes out, he just attacks the ball when it's in the air. And it's good to have guys like that. It always is. And I'm glad that they got two receivers in this draft. And I think he can be a good player. Again, he's got the confidence. You love that. And I think he'll be fun to watch and to talk to over the next few years.
Yeah, I think he gives them something they desperately lacked: a three-level playmaker that can make plays on perimeter screens, middle of the field, intermediate game, vertically over the top. They haven't had that, and on top of that, he adds some swagger to this offense, something that they've been also lacking in recent years. Now, it's interesting because Elliot Wolf pointed out that alignment versatility doesn't matter as much to the Patriots as people thought. I think a lot of people thought it mattered to them more than it does. And that's also part of this whole Packer thought process where it was more about drafting guys that fit the system than alignment versatility necessarily. Baker and Polk are in the same neighborhood size-wise, 6'1", 205. They have enough size that they can play all three receiver spots and be effective. But for me, I think that he potentially, outside of Drake May, could be their most impactful draft pick because he's a guy that they desperately lack in that receiving core right now. And I think if you can get him to do some of the things that he did at Central Florida, then I think you're going to have a hell of a player on your hands. Now, drops are an issue. He had over 20 drops in his college career, especially the last 2 years at Central Florida. But I think if you can make him get to a point where he's more consistent catching the football and he's not dropping it, yeah, I think you got a guy that's both of these guys I think could be 800 to 1,000-yard receivers, 6 to 8 touchdowns. And you might look at that and say, well, those are Kendrick Bourne numbers at his best. Yeah, but you know what? If you've got, let's say, 3 or 4 of those guys, well, you don't necessarily need a number one receiver now because you have a handful of guys that produce. So I don't have a problem with it. Now, the pick that got everybody's attention, of course, took place 2 picks after that. They take cornerback Marcellus Dial with their next pick in the 6th round, and then they take Joe Milton. And that's when I can hear Stone cheering from Waltham. They took quarterback Joe Milton with pick 193 in the 6th round. Now, of course, Stone saw his highlight film of him throwing a ball 70 yards, so he fell in love with him.
I watched his pro day.
And he watched his pro day, apparently. So the love affair was deeper than I thought. But just some overall thoughts on this pick. Again, I hate to beat the dead horse here. That's a Ron Wolf, Mike Holmgren move, drafting 2 quarterbacks in one class. Those guys were notorious for taking one at least every other year. Some thoughts on this move. It caught a lot of people off guard. It took a lot of people by surprise. But in many ways, I've thought about it the last 2 days, guys. I think it's smart. You're talking about a guy who's 6'5", 245 pounds, and has the best arm, maybe in all of football. Pretty smart move to take him. Adam, your thoughts?
I think it's good. Like, I always think it's good to add more competition to any position group because then everybody gets better. And look, if you're gonna take a flyer on a guy, Milton's the perfect dude because he's got a bazooka for an arm, and maybe you can mold that a little bit. Maybe you can get it to aim a little bit better than he did sometimes in college. But overall, it's just a competition. You want to add bodies and at every position group and have everybody competing.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, training camp is going to be a blast, right? I mean, watching these two guys go at it. But we talked about this weeks ago. You draft two quarterbacks, and if nothing else, Milton may build his value, whether it's in the preseason or maybe you have packages for him in the regular season. Like, there's a lot you can do with this kid, and you now have him under control for 3 or 4 years. So ultimately, you can have either a trade trip, or who knows, maybe he eventually beats out Drake May somehow. Like, this is a no risk kind of high reward situation, in my opinion. So I was thrilled, and my first thought was just how fun training camp is going to be watching those two guys compete.
Yeah, I don't see any scenario where he beats May unless May just completely falls apart. Especially, here's the thing: even if May fell apart his first year, you can't justify playing someone else over him. You're going to have to give him 3 years. So I don't see that scenario. However, I do think he needs a lot of work. He needs some work fundamentally, but his decision-making is a real problem. He can be very inconsistent. Last year was his first year as a starter. He played lights out in that Orange Bowl at the end of the season before, and I think a lot of people were already talking about him along with Caleb Williams as your early Heisman favorites going into last year, and he just never lived up to that hype. I thought he was disappointing. I thought he could have been much better in Josh Heupel's offense. All of that being said, I think it's a smart pick because you develop him. You give him a shot to play quarterback. I mean, I know he was asked about tight end. He's not playing tight end. You develop him as he should. I think.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the question, but I don't think – look, people were asking whether or not Lamar Jackson should be a quarterback. Bill Polian famously said he should play wide receiver. How did that play out? I mean, not a good look for a Hall of Fame executive. All that being said, I do think you give him a shot at quarterback, you try to develop him. I don't think this is good news for Bailey Zappi. I think Nathan Rourke and Bailey Zappi are on the outside looking in now. I thought Zappi for sure would be the backup quarterback, and he still very well could be. But I think now if Joe Milton has any kind of a decent training camp, I think they're going to probably carry Brissett, May, and Milton. And why not? I mean, you're talking about arguably two of the 5 biggest quarterbacks in the league, and they both have bazookas attached to their shoulders, so they can sling the thing. So, I think, to your point, Stone, I know you're going to be sitting there with your binoculars at camp, getting all hot and bothered about them having a throw off, but try to contain yourself. There's kids and families there. But either way you look at it, smart pick. And finally, in the 7th round, they take Florida State tight end Jaheim Bell, who you and I got to see last year at BC. I think he caught 5 balls for 76 yards and a touchdown. Had a good game. Nice pickup, move tight end. I mean, but the way I see him, I think he's a 3rd tight end and a special teamer. All right, nothing.
No, I was just saying they grabbed Joe Milton's tight end as well as an undrafted free agent. So kind of curious to see what that looks like if those two have a chance to kind of work together during camp. And we'll also see the rookies May 11th. We're allowed to see the second day of rookie camp, so that should be pretty entertaining as well.
Yeah, you'll be there for that. I will not. I have a recital to go to, so I will not be there for that. But have no fear, Patriot fans. We've got you covered. You are watching / listening to the New England Football Show, sponsored by Mortgage Right. I'm your host, John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by Stone and Kirchen. Just a reminder, if you're in the market to purchase your first home or purchase your next home, give our good friend Herb Devine a call, 781-254-2846. You can also shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. He and his team are available anytime, including nights and weekends. All right, gentlemen, it was also a great weekend for local prospects. A handful of them got drafted. Christian Haynes goes to the Seattle Seahawks in the 3rd round. Elijah Jones, I believe, did he go in the 5th?
No, 90th to Arizona.
He went 90th to Arizona. Okay, so it's been a long weekend, ladies and gentlemen. He went to the Arizona Cardinals, which I think is a good spot for him, a good fit in Jonathan Gannon's system. Then you had Dylan Lobby going the 6th round to the Las Vegas Raiders. C.J. Hansen got drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs in the 7th round, and Christian Mahogany also got drafted in the 6th round. He went to the Detroit Lions. Other guys have signed as undrafted free agents. Others have also gotten rookie minicamp invites, but just some thoughts, and I want to start with you, Adam, on the local guys and where they ended up.
I thought they had a good day. I was really happy to see Mike Sainristil go to Washington. That's a kid that I saw when he was at Everett. Just an unbelievable football player, like one of the best I've ever seen from this area. And just like great instincts, great football IQ. He's physically gifted. He's fast. And he's a fluid athlete. But I honestly think the best part about him is that other stuff, that football IQ, those instincts. He's so good at that. He always knows like when to break on the ball as a defensive back. He's good in stopping the run. As far as Zach Zinner from BB&N, when he was at BB&N, this guy would just he was a violent offensive lineman. He could do anything. He was a really good athlete, super strong, and plays with the tenacity you're looking for at that position. Christian Haynes, the UConn guard, was. I mean, look, you've been talking about this guy for years, John. I mean, Christian is just such a dominant run blocker. You know, like he's good in pass protection too. But what sticks out to me when you watch him is how he gets after it in the run game. And a guy like Lobby, like he just does a little bit of everything really well. You know, and I think he's somebody who could be like a great 3rd down back in the passing game. And he's just, I'm just so glad he's going to get his shot with the Raiders. You know, he'll have a chance to make the team. So it'll be really fun to watch him develop.
Yeah, I think Lobby's just a great fit for Vegas. I watched his Saturday, whatever you want to call it, press conference, Zoom call, whatever, with the Las Vegas media, and he screams Raider, just his personality, the way he talks, the way he carries himself, and he's a confident dude. We've all talked to him. There is no shortage of confidence in his ability, and especially with the new special teams rules, you never know how valuable he might be. So love Vegas for him. I was stunned Mahogany went as low as he did. I know he had the ACL 2 years ago, but I thought he had a really good year last year and kind of proved that he's healthy. I think Detroit is ultimately a perfect fit for him. That offensive line is mean and nasty, and that head coach can kind of play that pissed off card that Mahogany is going to use, I'm sure. So those two were great. And then CJ, again, another kid we've all dealt with, one of the nicest kids you'll ever meet. And I'm sure we all saw the videos of him breaking down and crying when he found out. And then he talked about it afterwards. What a spot. Like, you get to go to play for Andy Reid and the 2-time defending Super Bowl champs after you just won 5 straight Patriot League titles. That's a hell of a journey for him as well. And obviously Jalen Coker as well from Holy Cross didn't get drafted, but signed with Carolina. I think he's going to turn a lot of heads. So like you said, John, just overall a great day for New England prospects. And again, they're sort of creeping higher and higher up that draft board. And I think we're going to see more go in earlier rounds as the next few years kind of develop.
Yeah, I just want to run through the list real quick of who we have as far as local prospects or local players that played high school football here that have signed as either undrafted free agents or got rookie minicamp invites. You mentioned Jalen Coker. He signed as an undrafted free agent with the Panthers, got a decent chunk of change. Former URI offensive tackle Lorenzo Thompson signed with the Cleveland Browns as an undrafted free agent. Kyle Hergel signed with the New Orleans Saints as an undrafted free agent. Aira Asante, who played at Holy Cross, then transferred to Wyoming, signed with the Giants. Mason Tipton, who ran a sub 4.4 wide receiver from Yale, signed with the Saints. Kenny Dyson, we believe, signed with the Carolina Panthers. He either signed as an undrafted free agent or has a rookie minicamp tryout. David Sadkowski, guard from Stonehill, has a rookie minicamp tryout excuse me, with the Chicago Bears. Eric Watts signed as an undrafted free agent from UConn with the Jets. Jackson Mitchell signed as an undrafted free agent with the Panthers. LaQuay Washington, a linebacker from Central Connecticut, signed as an undrafted free agent with the Chargers. Isaiah Johnson signed as an undrafted free agent with the Dolphins, played at Dartmouth. Sebastian Delasutis is going to go to rookie minicamp with the Jets. Same with Katero Summers, wide receiver, both from URI. Jordan Colbert, safety from URI, is signing as an undrafted free agent with the Miami Dolphins. John Pupil is going to get a rookie minicamp tryout with the Patriots. BC, former Dartmouth and BC safety. Darian McKenzie, cornerback, tryout with the Steelers. Quinton Arello, he is the Dartmouth safety. He is going to get a rookie camp invite with the Titans. Sal Lupoli from Bentley, he's also going to get a rookie camp invite with the Titans. And Matthew Severance, running back, is going to get a rookie camp invite with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, there are others out there, and certainly we invite you, if you know if other guys have signed or been invited to rookie minicamp, let us know. We'd love to add them to our list. We do have our running list up on anyfootballjournal.com. And just to go back to the guys that got picked, Mike Sainristil, got a chance to cover him in high school, watch him play. One of the best athletes I've ever seen. Tremendous high school career at Everett, tremendous college career at Michigan, the best slot corner in the country. I think that the Commanders got a dog. He's going to be a tremendous player for them. They took him 50th overall. You mentioned Christian Haynes going to the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, look, two things I love about Christian Haynes. Technically sound, and he's nasty. He plays with a mean streak. He plays the game the way you should play it. He is a guy, and the other thing is the positional versatility. He's a guy that can play guard. He can play center. He's repped at both. Seahawks got a hell of a football player, Elijah Jones. Terrific length. Fits the mold of today's boundary corner. That's long, athletic, plays with good instincts, had 5 picks last year, led the ACC. He's going to be a good fit in Arizona. And then, of course, we talked about Dylan Lobby getting an opportunity with the Las Vegas Raiders. I think they're going to do a great job using him. They're going to move him around. They're going to get him touches in multiple ways. And, Kevin, you brought this up, and I think it's a fair point, special team rules. I think that a guy like that could be a real weapon as a result of these rule changes. Christian Mahogany, I agree with you, Kevin. He should have gone higher. I do think that the ACL injury hurt his draft stock a little bit, but could he have ended up in a better situation playing for Dan Campbell in Detroit? I mean, he's already been
perfect.
He was already, yeah. I mean, Brad Holmes already called him a dirtbag. I mean, so not for nothing, but now he gets a chance to go to a situation where I think he could potentially start for them. I mean, he's a great fit in that blocking scheme, that mindset. They want to run the ball. So, I mean, yes, he fell, but I don't think he could have ended up in a better situation. And, of course, C.J. Hansen ends up with the Kansas City Chiefs, who I think are going to love him. Great kid, versatile, can play guard, can play tackle, 6'5", 300 pounds, athletic, can move. The Chiefs do, we've talked about this the last few years. Chiefs do as good a job as anybody in the Northeast. They give more guys an opportunity to realize their dream from around here. It's because of all the New England connections in their front office than anybody else. And, of course, Cassidy Kamansky, their Northeast scout, does a tremendous job. Cassidy is one of the best. So it was a good weekend for local prospects. And, of course, Adam, you also mentioned Zach Zinter. Got to love that. I mean, how do you not root for that kid? I mean, if he doesn't break his leg against Ohio State, probably talking about a guy that goes late first, early second.
Yeah. I mean, he's like I think he's 6'5" or 6'6". I saw him one time. I was at the Northeast 7-on-7. He showed up to watch, and it was like there's no fat on the guy. He's all muscle. It's kind of crazy. So he's gonna do just fine for himself.
There's one guy I can't believe you forgot to mention. Kieran, I believe it's a Meji from Yale. He went to the Bears, and it's an absolutely perfect spot. His hometown. I'm not sure if you guys saw the quote, but they asked him about protecting Caleb Williams, and he flat out said he won't get touched behind me. So that kid's bringing a whole level of swagger to that Bears team that has a
Tremendous
lot of it now.
player. I got to see him 2 years ago against Brown in person. I mean, that athleticism, that length, he's a fluid mover. He could be their left tackle eventually. He's got that type of skill set. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's almost 6'6", 325 pounds. I mean, not only does he look the part, he plays the part. And I thought getting him in the 4th round, I thought was a tremendous pick for the Bears. And again, it was a good draft for New England. Last year, so much of the onus was on Zay Flowers, and of course, he went in the 1st round. But this was a great draft for local kids from New England and Massachusetts, but also guys that played here. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better draft. I think that it reinforced what we've been saying all along, that good college football gets played up here. Guys are playing at a high level. There's talent here. And I'm glad to see now that college coaches see it and they're recruiting the area, but NFL scouts and talent evaluators are also seeing it because they're drafting out of the area. A couple of high school news and notes real quick. Catholic Conference announces a showcase date today. Of course, May is showcase month for us. We'll be busy with all the local showcases. The Catholic Conference Showcase will be on Thursday, May 23rd at 6 p.m. at Zavarian. The Hockomock League, I believe, is also hosting one at Milford High School on May 12th. I believe that's from 3 to 7. That's Mother's Day. Just some thoughts on that. All of a sudden now we're seeing a lot of these showcase days pop up.
Yeah, it's becoming the new thing to do. And I think everybody wants to have their kids in front of college coaches, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're getting one a week now in May. But again, Adam, you hit on it. Just the more exposure, the better for these kids. If, we just talked about how many local guys got drafted. This is kind of where it starts, right? Like you start getting noticed at these showcases. So I guess the more the better at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, the Boston Renegades kicked off this weekend as well, Kevin.
Yep, 47-0 over Tampa, business as usual. That is now 41 straight wins, I believe, dating back, I want to say 5 years, 6 years maybe. They opened at, they had their home opener this Saturday against, I forget who, at 6 o'clock in Revere. But yeah, it was business as usual for the Renegades. I'll have something special up on them tomorrow afternoon at some point. There's been some significant changes, to say the least, but you'll have to check out the site to see kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, and the Mass Pirates improved to 5-1. Good friend of New England Football Journal, Connor Degenhardt, got the start for the Pirates as they beat Sioux Falls over the weekend. They are in the midst of a 3-game road trip, but Mass Pirates are 5-1 now. They're in first place in the Eastern Division of the IFL, and they're off to a really good start. And we'll have more Pirates coverage coming for you now here in May and June. We're excited about that. We'll also get to some games up at the Songus Arena, so it should be good. Pirates are off to a great start. Could very easily be undefeated right now, but great job so far by the Pirates as they play their first season in Lowell. All right, gentlemen, any final thoughts here before we wrap it up?
Yeah, real quick. I did a recruiting roundup with Springfield Central and talked to Coach Bill Watson, and he reported that Isaiah Rogers, who is a freshman this year still, got a Mississippi State offer. And that's pretty good for a kid that is good for anybody, but good for a kid who hasn't even seen his sophomore year yet. He's about 5'11", 5'11", 6 foot 190 pounds, and he ran a 10.5 100-meter dash which is seriously moving. So you're going to see a lot more of this. He played a little bit on varsity last year, more and more as the season went on, but he's going to be the guy for them this season. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. You know, a lot of good running backs in Massachusetts right now. So keep an eye out for those guys when the season starts.
Just one thing real quick for me. The transfer portal window, I believe, closes tomorrow, and it's May 1st, so Wednesday for graduate guys. So as rosters are right now, through spring ball is what you're probably going to see for the most part heading into training camp. So specifically for BC, and to me, it's very surprising that a lot of guys chose to stick this out. After everything that happened with Halfley and then going through spring ball, I expected more names than ultimately moved. So I think it shows a commitment to the staff and a commitment from the staff to the guys that were still here. And the fact that they wanted to stay here, I think it speaks volumes. But you can also say that for a lot of other programs as well. Now, a team like UMass, not so much. Obviously, they had, a few guys leave. But ultimately, the rosters you have now are what you're going to see in training camp. So that's going to be here before you know it, too.
Yeah, although UMass did pick up a nice local commitment in the portal today from Arsheen Giles, who was an all-conference corner at Sacred Heart the last few years. Giles had originally committed to URI after transferring from Sacred Heart after last season, but he decommitted from the Rams, and he decided to commit to UMass. Now, UMass, of course, had a lot of luck this spring with Lake Ellis, who transferred in from Bryant. Lake had a really good spring for them, and it looks like he's going to be one of their starting corners. Giles is an impressive player. I got to see him in person last year against Stonehill. He's got really good cover skills. He can play in the slot. I think he'll be a pretty good fit in this Don Brown defense, especially because he's a pretty good man-to-man cover corner. We all know Brown likes to bring pressure. All right, gentlemen, great job as always. We appreciate your efforts. It was a busy stretch here in New England Football Journal, but we're now entering showcase season, and before you know it, it'll be camp season. So goes by quick, but we want to thank you for being along for the ride. And as always, I do want to encourage you, if you get a chance, if you could subscribe to anyfootballjournal.com. We would greatly appreciate it. All your support is not only appreciated, but whatever money we are making right now, we're putting back into the business. So we appreciate that for you guys. If you could support us by subscribing, it's $2.99 a month for what we provide. It's a pretty good deal. You get some of the best, if not the best, football coverage in New England. So please make sure you do that. You can also check out, if you go to anyfootballjournal.com, you can also check out our team store. Feel free to jump onto our team shop and purchase some FJ gear. Again, all proceeds go towards us continuing to build what we believe is the best football site in New England. All right, that'll do it for this week's show. For Kevin Stone and Adam Kirchen, I'm John Sarianides. Till next week. Peace.
See ya.